The air was heavy with smoke. Every breath burned in the human soldier's lungs. The ground shook under the distant thunder of explosions, and the sky was lit by the fire of falling ships. It had been hours since the battle began, and the once green valley had turned into a wasteland of broken machines and scattered bodies. Darien, a soldier of Earth's defense forces, moved slowly through the ruins, his boots crunching over shattered glass and scorched metal. His squad had been separated in the chaos, and now he was alone, searching for any survivors. The enemy was gone, or so it seemed, but he knew better than to trust the silence. War had taught him that danger often hid in the quiet waiting. He stepped over the wreckage of a large alien war machine, its armor still warm from the blast that had destroyed it. That's when he heard it, a faint metallic sound, like armor scraping against stone. It was coming from behind a collapsed wall. He raised his weapon, ready for a fight. Slowly, he moved toward the sound, each step careful. When he peered over the rubble, he froze. There, lying against the broken stones, was the smallest warrior he had ever seen. Her armor was made for battle, black and silver, but cracked in several places. One of her legs was bent strangely, and her small hand still clutched a curved blade. She wasn't human. Her ears were long and pointed, her hair short and silver blue, and her eyes bright, fierce, and glowing faintly in the smoke locked onto him the moment she saw him. The alien girl bared her teeth like a cornered predator. Her breathing was fast, her tiny frame shaking, not from weakness, but from the effort of holding her weapon steady. She was injured, but still ready to fight. Darien lowered his weapon slightly, showing he wasn't going to shoot. He took a slow step closer. Her voice was sharp, her words a mix of her language and broken human speech. "Stay away," she hissed. Darien knelt down, keeping his hands where she could see them. "You're hurt," he said softly. "I'm not here to harm you." She didn't believe him. He could see it in the way her grip tightened on the blade. Her people and his were at war, and trust was not something easily given. But then, a gust of wind blew through the ruins, and she winced. Blood dripped from a cut across her side, staining the sand beneath her. Without thinking, Darien reached for his medkit. The moment his hand moved, she flinched, her blade lifting toward him in warning. But instead of pulling away, he kept moving slowly until he was close enough to touch her. Her body went rigid. She shook not from fear of death, but from the strange gentleness in his touch as he pressed a bandage to her wound. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the distant crackle of fire. Her eyes searched his face, confused. "Why? Help," she whispered, as if the idea itself was impossible to understand. Darien didn't answer right away. He simply wrapped the bandage tighter, careful not to hurt her. "You're a warrior," he said finally, "but you're also alive, and that's reason enough." Her breath caught. She had fought countless battles, survived endless days of pain and hunger, but no one enemy or ally had ever treated her like something worth saving. The warmth of his hand against her side felt strange, almost dangerous in its kindness. The ground trembled again, snapping them both out of the moment. Darien's head jerked toward the sound of approaching footsteps, not human footsteps. He quickly looked back at her. "Can you walk?" She hesitated, pride warring with pain, then gave a small shake of her head. Without asking, he slid his arm under her knees and behind her back, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Her blade slipped from her fingers, clattering to the ground. Her hands clenched against his vest, and she stared at him, wide-eyed, still trembling. They moved quickly through the ruins. The footsteps behind them grew louder. Whoever was coming wasn't far. Darien's heart pounded not from fear for himself, but from the thought of losing her after just finding her. They slipped between the shadows of broken walls, the burning light of the battlefield painting their path in gold and red. She didn't speak, but her gaze never left his face. She was trying to understand why a human would carry an alien enemy through danger instead of leaving her behind. By the time they reached the edge of the ruins, The noise of pursuit was close. Darian set her down gently behind a low wall and crouched beside her, rifle ready. Her breathing was still shaky, her hands gripping the fabric of his sleeve. For the first time, she whispered his name, soft and unsure. In that single moment, he realized this tiny alien warrior might be the most dangerous thing he'd ever faced. Not because of her blade, but because she made him want to protect her at any cost. The sky above the battlefield was a sickly orange. Thick smoke from burning ships drifted over the land, turning daylight into a dim, choking haze. Darian moved carefully, every step calculated, the small alien warrior held close against his chest. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder, though her sharp, alert eyes missed nothing. Her breathing had steadied since he had bandaged her wounds, but her body was still tense, even in his arms. She kept one hand near her waist, as if ready to grab a hidden weapon. Darian didn't mind. Trust wasn't built in minutes, especially not in a war zone. They left the ruined city behind. Stepping into the open wasteland, the ground stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged cliffs and scattered wrecks of fallen ships. Every sound carried far here, the crunch of boots, the clatter of loose stones, even the distant call of unseen creatures. Darian kept his rifle ready, scanning the horizon. The alien girl finally spoke, her voice low. "Where you take me?" Darian glanced at her. "Somewhere safe," he said. She looked away, as if the word safe was foreign to her. A sudden screech echoed across the barren land. Darian stopped, his eyes narrowing toward the source. From the shadows of a broken ridge, three long, spindly creatures emerged, their limbs twisted and sharp like blades. Their eyes glowed pale yellow, and they moved with a slow, deliberate hunger. The girl's grip on his vest tightened. "Predators," she whispered. He didn't need the warning, he could see the way they stalked, waiting to strike. Darian set her gently on the ground. "Stay behind me," he ordered. One creature lunged, its claws slicing through the air where his head had been a second ago. Darian rolled aside, firing 2 quick shots. The energy bolts lit up the smoke, tearing through the creature's chest. It fell shrieking, but the others only moved faster. The alien girl, even injured, drew a small dagger from her boot. When one predator leapt at her, she twisted aside, slicing at its throat. Her movements were quick, precise, born from years of survival. Darian finished the second with a shot to the head. The third turned to flee, but a blade spun through the air and struck it in the spine. Her throw. For a moment, the wasteland was silent again. Darian looked at her, breathing hard. "You're still fighting," he said. She wiped her blade on the sand. "Always," she replied, almost like a challenge. They kept moving, but Darian noticed her steps were slowing, even if she hit it well. The fight had taken more from her than she wanted to admit. The sun was sinking now, the light growing colder. They needed shelter before night. The wasteland changed after dark, more predators, and worse things that didn't need eyes to find. After an hour of walking, they found it an old alien supply bunker. Half buried in the sand, its metal door was rusted and covered with strange markings. Darian pried it open, the sound echoing in the empty air. Inside, the bunker smelled of dust and oil, but it was dry and defensible. They stepped in, closing the door behind them. The girl sat on a crate, her legs trembling slightly. Darian knelt and checked her bandages. "You need rest," he said. She shook her head. "No rest. They find us." Her eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting it to burst open. Darian understood. "You've been hunted before," he said, not as a question. She didn't answer, but the silence was enough. He pulled a canteen from his pack and offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it, sipping carefully. When she handed it back, their fingers brushed. She froze for a moment, her gaze locked on his. It wasn't fear this time. It was something else, something she didn't have a name for. The quiet was broken by a faint sound, soft footsteps outside the bunker. Darian motioned for her to stay low. He moved to the wall near the door. listening. More than one set of feet, moving slowly, deliberately. Not predators this time, too steady, too organized. The girl's eyes widened. "My people," she whispered. Her voice was tight, not with joy, but with dread. "They... not here to save me." Darian's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to go through me first," he said, his tone steady. She stared at him. Stunned, no one had ever said that for her before. The sound outside stopped, then came a sharp knock. On the metal door. "Open," a deep voice commanded in her language. Her hands curled into fists. "They call me traitor," she murmured. "They kill you first. Then me." Darian raised his rifle and glanced at her. "Then we don't open," he said. Her lips pressed together, and for the first time since they met, she gave a small, almost invisible nod. The bunker fell silent again, but both knew the night would not pass quietly. The metal walls of the bunker groaned softly in the wind. Outside, the night had fully fallen, and the wasteland lay under a dark sky filled with smoke and the faint shimmer of distant stars. The only light inside came from a small glow stick Darian had cracked open. Casting the room in a pale green hue, the alien girl sat on the edge of the crate, her legs drawn up slightly, one arm across her stomach where the bandages lay. Her eyes never left the door. Every sound outside made her tense. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fears. Darian sat against the opposite wall, his rifle resting across his knees. He studied her carefully, not in the way a soldier studies an enemy, but like someone trying to understand a puzzle. She was young, maybe barely out of her teenage years by human standards, but there was something ancient in the way she watched the shadows. It wasn't just training, it was survival. Finally, he broke the silence. "They've been following you for a while, haven't they?" Her eyes flicked to him, then back to the door. "Yes," she said simply. "They don't stop. Why?" he asked. She hesitated, her jaw tightening as if the words were difficult to say. "They think I am weak," she muttered. "Too small, too fragile for war." A bitter edge slipped into her voice. "I fight better than many, but still, they see only my size." Darian understood that kind of judgment. He'd been underestimated before, but in his case, it was an advantage. For her, it was a curse. She shifted slightly, wincing at the movement. "You carried me," she said suddenly, her voice softer now. "In my world." "That is shame." Her gaze met his for the first time since they entered the bunker. "But..." "I did not feel shame." Darian didn't smile, but something warm flickered in his eyes. "Sometimes letting someone help you is harder than fighting alone," he said. "It takes more strength than people think." Her expression softened, just a fraction, but the sound of gravel crunching outside cut the moment short. They both froze. The glow stick's faint light seemed too bright now. Shadows shifted under the crack at the bottom of the door. Darian motioned for her to stay low. He crawled silently toward the wall near the door, straining to hear. Two voices spoke in low tones in her language. She crept closer, listening with him. "They are saying they will wait until we sleep," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They think you will be tired, easy to kill." Darian's grip tightened on his rifle. "We won't be here by then," he said, her brow furrowed. "Outside is worse," she warned. "Night creatures hunt everything that moves." He studied her face for a moment. Her fear wasn't just for herself, she was thinking about him too. That realization sat strangely in his chest. The bunker suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. They needed a plan. He moved to his pack and began checking his gear. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded hesitantly. "Yes, but not fast." He slung the pack over his shoulder. "Then we move quietly," he said. "Stay close. Don't fall behind." Before they left, she surprised him by reaching into her armor and pulling out a small metal charm shaped like a crescent moon. She pressed it into his palm. "For luck," she said, not meeting his eyes. "It is all I have." Darian closed his fingers around it. "I'll keep it safe," he promised. The words were simple, but for some reason, they made her chest feel warm. They slipped out the back of the bunker through a narrow maintenance tunnel. The cold air outside hit them instantly, carrying the smell of dust and burnt metal. The wasteland was different at night, quieter, but with a constant feeling of being watched. Strange shapes moved in the distance, lit only by the glow of alien moons. They kept to the shadows, moving between rock formations every time of night. Creature's call echoed. She instinctively stepped closer to him. He didn't say anything, but he noticed, and strangely, he liked it. Halfway across the ridge, a sudden screech cut through the air. A pale, four-legged beast with glistening fangs darted from the darkness. Darian fired a quick shot, the energy blast lighting up the rocks. The creature fell, but more calls followed. They were being surrounded. The girl pulled her dagger, standing beside him despite her wounds. "Back to back," she said, her voice steady. And for the next few minutes they fought together, moving in perfect rhythm, his rifle and her blade cutting down anything that got too close. When the last creature fled, they were both breathing hard. Darian glanced at her. "You still think you're weak?" he asked. She gave the smallest of smiles. "Not when I fight with you," she said. They continued their journey, but the danger hadn't passed. The shadows seemed deeper now, and somewhere behind them, those same patient footsteps followed. Neither spoke of it, but both knew someone out there wanted the tiny alien warrior dead, and Darian wasn't going to let it happen. The horizon was still dark when they reached the rocky edge of the canyon. Thin trails of mist curled along the ground, hiding cracks and jagged stones beneath their boots. Darian slowed his pace, listening. The footsteps they had been hearing for hours were closer now, too steady to be predators, too deliberate to be random travelers. The alien girl, small, sharp-eyed, and still limping slightly, moved beside him. She didn't need to be told what it meant. "They have followed all night," she murmured. Her voice held no surprise, only certainty. The canyon walls rose high on both sides. It was the only path forward. But it also meant a trap could be waiting. Darian knew it. So did she. Halfway through the canyon, the sound came, a faint metallic click. He stopped instantly. The girl froze beside him. Then the air filled with the hum of energy weapons being powered on. Figures stepped from the shadows ahead, armored in dark plates with silver markings. Her people. There were 5 of them, each holding long rifles shaped like curved bone. Their faces were hidden behind visors, but their movements were sharp, efficient, trained soldiers. The leader, taller than the rest, stepped forward and lowered his weapon slightly. His voice was cold as he spoke in their language. "Return the girl." The alien warrior at Darian's side stood straighter. Her expression was unreadable, but Darian could feel the tension in her small frame. "They will not let you live," she said quietly to him in human speech. "They will take me, and they will kill you." Darian kept his rifle ready. "You're not going anywhere," he said. The leader's visor tilted toward him. "You do not understand, human." The voice came through a translator device now. "She is property of the clan. She belongs to us." Darian's grip tightened. "She's not property," he replied. "She's a person." The soldiers shifted slightly, weapons ready. The leader's tone sharpened. "Step aside, and you may walk away." The alien girl spoke then, switching to her own language. Her words were quick, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. Darian didn't understand the language, but he recognized the look in her eyes. It was defiance. The leader's body stiffened. Then he raised his hand, a silent command to the others. In a breath, the canyon erupted into chaos. Energy blasts lit up the mist. Darian fired back, his shots forcing 2 soldiers into cover. The alien girl darted forward, her small size making her hard to hit, her blade flashing in the dim light. One soldier lunged at her, but she slid under his arm and slashed at the joint in his armor. He fell with a cry. Another tried to flank Darian, but the human turned, firing point blank, sending the attacker sprawling. The leader advanced, his rifle aimed at Darian's chest. Before he could fire, the girl appeared behind him, pressing her blade to his neck. For a moment, the fight froze. The leader's voice came low and dangerous. "You will regret this, child." Her voice was colder. "I already regret nothing." Darien kept his weapon on the remaining soldiers. "You can leave," he told them, "or you can stay and find out how far we'll go." There was a long, tense pause. The leader finally raised his hands. Signaling retreat, the soldiers backed away slowly, their glowing visors vanishing into the mist. Only when the last shadow disappeared did the girl lower her blade. Darien exhaled slowly. "You didn't have to fight them," he said. She looked at him sharply. "They would never stop," she replied. "They are bound by the clan's pride and their hatred." She was breathing harder now, the adrenaline wearing off. Darien noticed her hands trembling slightly. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded once, though her eyes told another story. "Today, yes," she said. "Tomorrow, maybe." They moved quickly out of the canyon, not wanting to risk the soldiers returning. The path ahead led to a stretch of open desert, the wind whipping sand into their faces. The girl pulled the scarf from her armor and wrapped it around her mouth, her eyes narrowing against the sting. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere they won't follow," he answered, though he wasn't sure such a place existed. As they walked, Darien glanced at her. "You could have left me," he said. "You had the chance in the fight." She didn't look at him. "You could have left me yesterday," she said simply. "You did not." The wind howled between them, carrying the unspoken truth. Neither of them was ready to walk away from the other. Far behind, in the shadows of the canyon, the leader of the soldiers stood with his men. His voice was low, dangerous. "Send word to the clan," he ordered. "She has chosen the human. That makes them both enemies." The sun was high, baking the endless desert in a shimmering heat. Darien and the tiny alien warrior moved quickly, their boots sinking into the soft sand. Neither had spoken much since leaving the canyon, both listening for the sound of pursuit. Hours passed before they found a place to rest. A cluster of jagged black rocks offered some shade, and they collapsed behind them. Darien checked his rifle while she sharpened her blade on a flat stone. Her movements were quiet, but focused. She glanced at him only once, and in that glance, he could see it. She was ready for another fight. He was about to say something when a sharp whistle cut through the air. Her head snapped toward the sound. "That is a signal," she said. "They have found us." Darien didn't need more warning. From over the ridge came the first Wave 6 armored soldiers from her clan, rifles raised, moving in perfect formation. There was no time to run. He rose to his feet, pulling her up beside him. "We hold them here," he said. Her eyes locked with his, and she nodded without hesitation. The first shots cracked through the air, energy bolts slamming into the rocks around them. Darien fired back, his shots forcing the front line to scatter. One soldier tried to flank them from the left, but the alien girl darted forward, her blade flashing. She struck low, slicing at the weak points in his armor, dropping him in seconds. Another soldier charged straight at Darien. Swinging a heavy staff-like weapon, Darien blocked the strike with his rifle, kicking the man backward. Before the soldier could recover, the alien girl appeared at his side, her dagger sinking deep into the gap between plates. They moved together, like they had trained for years. When one of them struck, the other covered the opening. When one fell back, the other stepped forward. Neither spoke, but their rhythm was perfect. The soldiers regrouped, their leader barking orders in their language. This time, 3 came at once. Darien shot one in the chest, spun to the side, and drove his elbow into another's helmet. The third soldier aimed for the alien girl, swinging a blade meant to cut her in half. She ducked low, rolled, and came up behind him, her blade cutting deep. For a brief moment, there was silence. Only 4 soldiers remained, but they were cautious now. The leader stepped forward, a long spear crackling with energy in his hands. Darien could feel the heat coming off it even from a distance. "You fight like one of us. Human," the leader called out, "but you will die for her." Darien didn't lower his weapon. Maybe, he said, but not today, the leader lunged, moving with speed that defied his size. Darien met the strike with his rifle, sparks flying as the energy spear clashed against metal. The force pushed him back a step, but before the leader could follow up, the alien girl leapt onto a rock and sprang forward. Her blade scraped along the spear shaft, knocking it aside. Darien seized the opening, ramming the butt of his rifle into the leader's helmet. The other soldiers rushed in. It became a blur, blasts, blades, and the hot sting of sand whipping into their faces. Darien's shoulder burned from a near miss, but he didn't slow. The alien girl's breathing grew heavy, but her strikes never faltered. At one point, she stumbled, her knee giving out. Two soldiers moved in for the kill. Darien stepped in front of her, blocking their blows. "Stay behind me," he shouted, but she shook her head and pushed forward. "Not behind," she said fiercely. "With you." And then they were back to back. He covered the front, blasting down anyone who came close. She covered the rear, moving like a shadow, her blade finding every weakness in the armor of their enemies. Every time he shifted, she matched his step. Every time she ducked, he adjusted his stance. The fight ended as suddenly as it began. The last soldier fell, the leader staggering away with blood dripping from his visor. He gave them one last look, half fury, half something like respect, before retreating into the dunes. Darien lowered his rifle slowly, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The alien girl stood beside him, her blade still in her hand, her small frame trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion. He looked at her and said, "You saved my life." She didn't meet his eyes. "You saved mine first," she replied softly. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the sound of retreating footsteps until it faded into silence. Darien glanced at the horizon. "They'll be back," he said. She nodded. "Then we keep moving." They left the bodies behind and walked deeper into the desert. The sun was setting now, painting the sand in deep gold and blood red. And though danger still hunted them, there was an unspoken truth between them. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way they had today. The desert night was colder. Then stone. The heat of the day was gone, replaced by a sharp wind that cut through even the thickest clothing. Darien walked with steady steps, his rifle slung across his back, the tiny alien warrior keeping close beside him. Her breath fogged in the air, and she wrapped her thin scarf tight around her neck. Hours earlier, they had fought side by side, driving back her own people in a battle that should have left them dead. Now, the silence between them was not from fear, but from exhaustion. Every crunch of sand under their boots seemed louder in the emptiness, when the first faint glow of moonlight revealed a line of dark rocks ahead. Darien stopped. "Shelter," he said quietly. She followed without question, stepping carefully over loose stones until they found a narrow opening between two cliffs. Inside, the wind was weaker, the air warmer, and the ground was smooth enough to sit. Darien set his pack down and pulled out a small heating unit. It hummed softly, casting a dim orange glow. The girl sat opposite him, her knees drawn up, the flicker of light dancing across her silver-blue hair and bright, watchful eyes. For a while, neither spoke. The quiet was almost peaceful, but Darien could feel the weight of unspoken questions between them. Finally, she broke it. "You could have left me many times," she said slowly, her accent curling around the human words. "Why didn't you?" He looked at her across the small space, his expression unreadable. "Because you were worth saving," he said simply. Her brows drew together slightly. "My own clan says I am weak," she murmured. "They say my size brings shame. I was sent to the front line so I would die quickly." Darien's jaw tightened. "They were wrong," he said. "I've fought beside soldiers twice your size who had half your courage." She didn't answer right away. Instead, her eyes dropped to the floor, tracing invisible patterns in the sand with her finger. Her voice was softer when she spoke again. "When you first touched me, I thought you were mocking me," she admitted. No one had ever handled me like I mattered. Darian leaned back against the wall, watching her carefully. It wasn't mockery, he said. It was respect. Her gaze lifted to meet his, and for a moment the wind outside seemed far away. The silence between them was different, now warmer, safer. She opened her mouth to speak again, but a faint noise outside made them both tense instantly. Darian held up a hand. The sound came again, a soft scrape of metal against stone. He moved silently to the edge of the rock opening. Peering out, shadows moved just beyond the moonlight, slow and deliberate. "They're back," he whispered. The girl's eyes narrowed. "They will wait for us to sleep." "Then strike," Darian thought quickly. "They expect us to stay here all night," he said. "We'll leave before they realize." They packed quickly, moving with practiced silence. The girl winced when she stood, but she didn't complain. They slipped out through a narrow gap in the cliff, moving into the open desert once more. The stars overhead were sharp and cold, guiding them forward. After some time, she spoke again, her voice low. "When I saw you fight today, I was not afraid," she admitted. "Not even when the leader came for us." Darian glanced at her. "That's because we fought together," he said. "And together is stronger than alone." She walked in silence for a few steps before adding, "I never fought with someone who watched my back. Not like that." Her tone held something between wonder and disbelief. They reached a ridge overlooking a wide, dark valley. Far below, a faint light flickered, maybe a village, maybe a camp. Darian studied it for a long moment. "We can rest there, if it's safe," he said. The girl hesitated, her eyes scanning the valley. "You keep leading," she said finally. "I will follow." They descended slowly, their footsteps muffled in the sand. When they were halfway down, Darian stopped, looking over at her. "There's something you need to know," he said. "I'm not leaving you, no matter who comes for you." She froze, her eyes widening slightly in the moonlight. "You mean, even if my clan returns?" "Even then," he said firmly, "you're not their property. You're my ally." For a moment, her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she gave the smallest nod, and something in her posture shifted less guarded, more trusting. They continued on in silence, but it was no longer heavy. Above them, the stars shone brighter, and ahead, the light in the valley grew closer. Whatever waited for them there, they would face it together. The desert stretched endlessly under the pale light of two alien moons. The wind was calmer now, carrying only the faint rustle of sand over stone. Darian and the tiny alien warrior moved together, their shadows long across the ground. Each step took them farther from the last fight, and closer to something neither had expected: trust. When they finally reached the ridge, they saw it. Nestled between jagged cliffs was a small hidden outpost. A faint glow of campfires flickered in the darkness. It looked quiet, peaceful. But Darian knew better than to believe appearances. "We can rest there," he said. She didn't answer, just followed him down the winding path. The settlement was a patchwork of salvaged ship parts and weathered stone huts. Metal sheets rattled softly in the breeze. A few strange-eyed locals watched from doorways, whispering in a language neither of them recognized. But no one stepped in their way. They found a small abandoned structure near the far wall, its door half broken and swinging in the wind. Inside, it was dim but dry. A cracked window let in the faint glow of moonlight. Darian checked every corner before setting his rifle within arm's reach. She sat quietly on a crate, her blade resting across her lap. For a while, they didn't speak. The fire they built between them flickered gently, painting their faces in golden shadow. Finally, she broke the silence. "Back there, in the canyon, in the desert. You could have run many times," she said softly. "You stayed." Darian looked into the flames. "Because walking away would have been the wrong choice." He said, "You're not my enemy." Her eyes lowered. "My people call me weak," she admitted. "They sent me to die on the front lines. I think they were glad when they thought I was gone." Her voice was calm. But the weight behind it was heavy. They were wrong, Darian said firmly. You've survived battles most wouldn't, and you fought beside me like we'd trained. For years, she looked up at him, something uncertain in her expression. When you touched me the first time, I didn't know what it was, she said quietly. It felt safe. The word seemed strange on her tongue, like it didn't belong in her language. Before he could reply, a sound outside made them both tense, soft. Deliberate footsteps, too quiet for locals, too steady for scavengers, Darian motioned. For her to stay low, he peered through the broken window and saw movement, 5 figures approaching. Their armor catching the faint moonlight, her eyes narrowed. They followed us, she whispered. They will not leave without blood. The first blow came fast, the door slammed inward. And the fight began. Darian fired a single shot, dropping the lead attacker instantly. The others surged in, weapons flashing. The alien girl moved like water, her small frame weaving between them, her blade finding weak spots in their armor. Darian covered her from the other side, blasting down anyone who tried to flank. The fight was brutal but quick. When it was over, 3 lay dead inside. The other 2 retreating into the night with curses in her language. Darian closed the broken door, breathing hard. That won't be the last time, he said. She nodded. They will keep coming. They sat back down at the fire, their breathing slowly returning to normal. For a long time, the only sound was the crackle of the flames. Then she reached into her armor and pulled out something small, a silver emblem shaped like a half-moon. This is my clan mark, she said. It means I am theirs. It means I must obey. She looked at it one last time before tossing it into the fire. The flames hissed as the metal blackened and bent. When she met his gaze again, her voice was steady. Now I belong to no one. Darian studied her for a moment. And if you choose? He asked. She didn't hesitate. I choose to fight with you. Something shifted between them, then something quiet but unbreakable. He reached out his hand. In my world, he said, we shake on a promise. She looked at his hand for a second before placing hers in it. In mine, warriors swear to fight together until death, she said. Her grip was small but strong. The wind outside picked up, carrying the faint howls of night creatures. Tomorrow, there would be more enemies, more dangers, but as they sat side by side, firelight flickering on their faces, there was no fear, not anymore. In the shadows outside, unseen eyes watched from the cliff above. A figure turned away and vanished into the night. Far away, orders would be given. The hunt was far from over. But for Darian and the tiny alien warrior, the war ahead no longer felt impossible. They had faced death together, and in that fire, they had forged something stronger than blood. A bond that neither clan nor battlefield could break. And as the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, they stood together, weapons ready. Whatever came next, they would face it not as strangers, but as a team, as allies, as something more.